Back, and as you've been seeing those visuals coming from the Bontebok National Park, I should say, absolutely breathtaking. And the good news is, of course, that for all of this week, you can have free access to these parks if you are a South African citizen and able to produce a valid ID document. So let's go back to Valen, talking about the various facets and aspects of nature conservation and what it takes to keep these spaces as pristine as they are. With that, it's back to you, Valen.
Thank you very much, Kina. Yes, so sustainable tourism is now going to go into the spotlight as we're joined by SANParks Managing Executive for Tourism and Marketing Development, Hapiloe Sello. SANParks is actually a self-funding entity. They generate 80% of their operating budget, and they've always relied on tourism revenue to help support the conservation mandate. A very good morning and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Yes.
Please explain to us the dynamic and the synergy between tourism and conservation.
Actually, I'm so glad you actually used the word synergy. There is a very strong interdependency between the two. Let's just talk about SANParks. SANParks' mandate is conservation of biodiversity and cultural heritage. A byproduct of that is tourism. But where the strong interdependency is further experienced is that tourism funds SANParks' ability to carry out its conservation mandate. So as you rightfully pointed out, 80% of our revenue is self-generated, with the rest coming from government. So tourism is a critical pillar in the survival of South African national parks and its ability to carry through its mandate.
Tell us about sustainable tourism and nature-based tourism.
Sustainable tourism is a concept that seeks to ensure that there is minimal disruption to an environment as you carry out tourism activities. And that is core to our practices in tourism as SANParks. As much as it's a major revenue generator for SANParks, we do all of our tourism developments within the framework of a sustainable tourism policy and strategy. And that ensures that we touch the earth very lightly. We have minimal impact on the environment. We don't overdevelop our parks. That's very important. We ensure that less than 10% of the park actually has developments. In addition to that, we also assess what we call the carrying capacity of a park. So, for example, we impose quotas at our gates during peak season because it is also imperative that we do not have crowds that are going to be, possibly disruptive to not only our operations but can even damage the fauna that we're protecting. So it's really, I think, the ethos for your average person in the street, the ethos that you need to keep in mind is about touching the earth lightly.
It's quite difficult in the current economic climate to not feel the pressure of increasing those development quotas and even the quotas for coming into the gates on a daily basis for SANParks around the country.
No, it isn't. It really is, it's the heartbeat of what we do in tourism. We simply cannot go outside of those bounds. And if there is pressure to increase revenue, we can find other ways of ensuring that we manage our business more effectively. For example, keeping costs down. Because at the end of the day, it's running a business. So there will never be a point where we feel we're under so much financial pressure that we approach tourism recklessly. So you're not going to start seeing 50% of our parks developed, or us not imposing quotas, or introducing an inordinate number of new gates in the parks, things that we cannot justify. The ethos will remain because the ethos is so critical to conservation. And that is really the framework that we operate within. We are not like your average hotel group, let's say, that is just revenue and profit driven. No. The constraint is there, and that constraint is to make sure that we operate in a sustainable fashion for conservation.
What is the vision for commercialization and development across the different parks that are under the SANParks stable?
We have a 10-year tourism development plan, and that plan incorporates commercialization, obviously, which includes the partnering with the private sector in what we call public-private sector partnerships in the development of a variety of activities and services. And I think I need to explain one thing. Commercialization is very critical for us in terms of diversifying the tourism offering. So, for example, we have a lot of our 5-star lodges in our parks are run by private parties. We don't have that competency as SANParks. Our competency is reserved to providing self-catering, accommodation, and the like. So without the private parties, without the private sector, we wouldn't be able to diversify our offerings to you as the general public. But as well, very important, commercialization is also governed by sustainable tourism. So we operate from something called a park plan. Any park plan will show you those areas which are designed for high impact activities, and that's where we develop.
All right, thank you very much. Hapiloe Sello is SANParks Managing Executive for Tourism and Marketing Development. Thanks for chatting to us here on Morning Live. We're going to continue broadcasting from the Bontebok National Park here in the Western Cape, but do stay with Morning Live.